I sat by the old oak tree. I held a silence I could never keep. And I said, find me in the caverns where the bats and lanterns hang. If they paint rings around our necks, at least those kids, they've all got clever names. Look into the branches for their symmetry. Lifts me up from self-inflicted atrophy. Where he's been at your feet. This doesn't need to be such a hopeless thing.
You lost me in the golden age of everything. The golden age of everything, it seems incomplete. You take a picture from the mountains, and I swear I thought I saw
the real thing. I sat by the old oak tree. I dreamt a castle on the open sea. And I said, find me in the caverns where the bats and lanterns hang. If they can pull us from the depths, at least we know that some things never change. Look into the lighthouse for their shimmering. Lifts me up from self-inflicted anything. And all the tides you bring, now you finally see. Yeah, you finally see.
You lost me in the golden age of everything. The golden age of everything, it seems incomplete. You take a picture from the mountains, and I swear I thought I saw
the real thing.
Of everything, the golden age of everything, it seems incomplete. You take a picture from the mountains, and I swear I thought I saw the real thing.
Ryan Hoffman and the Pioneers here on River Talk on the River's Edge Radio Network. Brian Crawford broadcasting from Mr. Small's Theater. And I think the big news of the day is Zach Fell, my engineer, has learned how to use the board. Woo! It's probably the first time that this board has been used to any capacity besides 3 mics in a DI since it was in the funhouse at Mr. Small's. So thanks to the band for getting us to learn how to use the board on the fly. But we did it. We did it. Just like we made it through the Three Rivers Arts Festival at the Filter International Music Festival stage, which was an interesting experience. I sent the volunteers out, and I had called off work for a few days because I'm adjusting to the new schedule, and I hadn't been feeling well, and I kept getting about 1 hour's worth of sleep before going in because I had worked overnight for 3 years. So I would stay up, fall asleep around 4 in the morning, have to wake up at 5:30, and I just couldn't do it anymore. So I decided to call off for 3 days. So what did I do on the first day? Oh, I just kept answering phone calls from the volunteers. But they managed to make it work. It was a good event, lots of fun down at the Three Rivers Arts Festival. Thank you so much to Mike Y for organizing all of that. We have lots in store for you today on today's program. Don't forget, you can listen to the River's Edge via your Alexa device. Just tell it to listen to the River's Edge station on TuneIn, and you can listen to the River's Edge right there. The question of the day is, and it was an interesting topic that was brought up by a friend of the program, Dave Bracey, who hosts the Drinking Partners podcast. He had posted on his page about the discrimination in the way that the Kenny Chesney concert was handled. The Kenny Chesney concert, which just was on Saturday, just yesterday. It was rivaling the Three Rivers Arts Festival and the Filter Festival International Music Stage. And the reason why he said that is he said if it was a black performer that the concert would have been canceled after the first year of it being such a disaster. If you remember all of the trash and the rubbish and the filth that littered the North Shore. And I thought that was an interesting comment, and I thought going even beyond racial discrimination, and maybe there's some merit to those comments, but I thought in different genres of music you could see that kind of discrimination. And I think about hip-hop, and I know different events which I have organized in the past, I've seen some resistance to bringing in hip-hop and R&B and different types of music. And I thought that, speaking with Zach here to my left, and I think this will be an interesting topic, and you don't have a mic, actually. Let's get you a mic. I think that metal, in some ways, may experience similar discrimination.
They only tried to throw our most high-profile artists into jail for horrible things for about a decade. We're over that now. It's gotten a lot better.
It's gotten a lot better. But I think it's interesting. I do think that there is somewhat of a discriminatory factor in the way that society and the way that government will handle certain genres of music versus other genres of music. So I want to hear your thoughts on that at River Talk PGH on Twitter, on the Facebook Live feed, or at River's Edge, or 412-4072-PGH. If you can text us there, we can read your texts as well. So that's one topic for today. We have Charlie Deitch, who is formerly the editor of the Pittsburgh City Paper. He was fired for comments that were made in editorials written by the City Paper regarding State Representative Daryl Metcalf. He's going to be in the program in the second half of the show. He's going to tell his story. He's going to explain what happened, and he also has some new news for us in that regard as well. We do have Ryan Hoffman and the Pioneers here in studio. They're going to be talking to us about the group and about what they have been going through. So lots of exciting stuff there. And then also a big change in the fast food world. That's right. There's new pricing coming out. Not pricing on the menu, but pricing going out to the employees in the way of pay raises for at least one particular fast food restaurant. So we'll talk about that. And also the Johnstown flood tax. That's right. We are being taxed every year to benefit the revitalization of the Johnstown flood, which was a long, long time ago. We're still paying, but it isn't going to Johnstown anymore, and somebody wants to bring that money back to Johnstown. I think we should just get rid of the tax, but we'll talk a little bit about that. And also the dumbest protest. That's right. Someone decided to do a protest on a bridge, and it was really, really dumb here in Pittsburgh. I'll explain all of that and more in just a little bit. But right now I want to talk to Ryan Hoffman and the Pioneers, which we have here in studio, and I'm glad to get you guys in. Why don't we introduce everybody? We'll start on my far left, and we'll go across.
It's me. I'm Mike Smales. I play the drums.
Mike Smales.
I'm Ryan Hoffman. I play the guitar and sing.
I'm Amy Lynette. I play the sax and sing.
And I'm Brad Collins, and I play guitar and bass.
Guitar and bass, great. So you guys are here in studio. We've been wanting to get this set up, so we've got this set up. This is fantastic, and this is honestly the most intricate setup we've done so far, which is great because most people, they come in and they're just like, we'll just use the mics and read the room. So this is nice because we get like the truest sound, which is great. Which Mike, you own your own studio, correct?
Yeah.
So we had the perfect person in here to make it happen. So tell me about you guys. You guys have been playing for a little while now.
About a year with the three of us, and I wanted to point out that Mike and Brad are the ones who complicate the setup. Amy.
That's absolutely. You don't see all the stuff on the floor.
Yeah, there's quite a bit down here.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah, that's right. There is like this huge contraption right here on my right.
Yeah, it's a little Rube Goldberg, but that's okay.
Yeah.
But Amy, Brad, and I have been playing together for about a year. I was doing some solo stuff and met Amy at an open mic, and then met Brad at one of our shows, and then we just started playing together, and started writing together, and it went a long way. And then Mike actually messaged us because he went through our Facebook pictures and saw that we didn't have a drummer.
No drummer.
Yeah.
No drummer.
Music sounds cool.
Which could have been taken two ways, but I took it
Right.
the positive way.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's great. So it was a good fit then. It's working
No, it's
out.
been a great fit, yeah.
About 6 weeks now?
Yeah.
Fantastic.
We've
So
been writing with him, and it's been fun, and yeah.
cool. So what's the process like of getting? So obviously, you three started playing. What's the process like of getting the band together or organizing it?
Like at first, or
Yeah. Well, the first steps, because I know it's got to be different, because I know you were doing solo stuff, Ryan, and so were you, Amy. As I know both of you from the open mic scene, so you got to kind of meld your styles together, I imagine, and then go from there.
Yeah, I mean, Ryan initially got in touch with me after a few months we had seen each other at an open mic, and he randomly messaged me and asked if I was still interested in being part of a band. I kind of just leaped at it, and it was a very natural process. We didn't really have too much to get into. He gave me his songs at first, and then we started writing songs together.
Is that hard to write collaboratively when you're used to writing on your own?
I don't know, sometimes.
Well, as I said, it's a better question for probably you, Amy, because you and Brad were writing more on your own. I still do a fair amount of writing on my own, and then bring it to them, and then we collaborate and change it and make it different and bring it to life. And their input's always awesome. So, but yeah, I'd be curious what Brad and Amy think about that.
Yeah, I mean, it ends up we all bring our own ingredients and then mix that, right? So I might bring a part, and Ryan will have an idea on it. Amy will bring a vocal line, and I'll have an idea on that. And it's really collaborative. We work really well together, and it's a lot of back and forth. There's no ego. There's no I own this part, you own that part kind of thing. So it's been great.
Definitely. Ryan, is it weird to see something that you first write be morphed and changed
Well, it was
in the
interesting.
process?
So I did the Pines EP by myself 2 years ago. Well, not by myself, with Jay Vega, Eric Pitluga, and Kara Garofalo.
Yeah, we have that one in rotation.
Oh, awesome. Well, so that one was a bunch of acoustic songs that I had, and then Jay kind of visioned it and brought it to life that way. So that's what I was used to, and that's what my previous band, Roadrunner, that's how we did things. But so this has been fun, kind of bringing it to life in person rather than in the studio.
Mhm.
And no, I think it's been a lot of fun. I think if you listen to the new stuff versus the old stuff, there's a lot more joy and just general energy in the new stuff. It's not me sitting in my apartment, at 2 a.m. writing mildly sad songs.
You've mentioned that before on stage about
Yes.
having sad songs and things like that. So.
Well, that's the stuff I listen to usually, so that's what I end up writing. And yeah, it's been great to get out of my head that way, though, and kind of get to share that process with other people rather than just keeping it all to myself and then going on stage and being like, I've been thinking about this song for 6 months. Now it's like, hey, Brad, I wrote this yesterday, and then we're like, cool, let's do this with it. And yeah, it's been much more, much easier, I think, and more fun. So.
Okay, well, that's good to know. It's nice to see that you guys are able to work so collaboratively together. I know I personally, as a talk show host, I'm a control freak, so I can't give up any of the content. So we'll do certain things like when I have Michael in studio, he'll come up with different things and talk about it, but it all has to kind of fit into a certain roadmap that I organize. So.
Well, I think we figured that out as we went. There were some times we weren't sure which direction we should take, if one person thought this or that, but then that was 6 months ago, and now we've been smooth ever since and very much on the same page, so that's been cool.
Cool. So where all have you guys played since you've been together? And Mike, when did you join? How
Like 6 weeks ago.
6 weeks ago. Oh wow.
My debut appearance.
Wow. Oh really? Oh, there
Yeah.
we go.
Yeah, you'd never know to listen to it, right?
That's exciting. Yeah, gel just perfectly. Yeah, that's fantastic. So there we go. Breaking here on the River's Edge.
Yeah.
So where have you guys played?
Oh, Mr.
Cafe.
Small's Club Cafe. Played at Walnut Grill in Bridgeville.
Oh, nice.
Played at Hambones a few times. Kind of the usual circuit. We haven't played at Brillo Box yet, although I'd really like to. So if there's any Brillo Box booking agents listening, we would love a show.
There we go. Awesome. So I'm really excited. What do you guys have coming up on your schedule?
So we're playing at Sadie Friends EP release show
June 9th.
June 9th, which is this Saturday. That's at Full Pint.
Oh,
There's-
nice.
She filled the bill with a lot of fantastic artists, so it should be a really fun night, and we're really excited to hear her EP, and I know she's worked hard on it. So.
That place is really kind of coming around as far as being open to local music and stuff. It seems like they started off with the open mic, and they seem to have taken off from there. Do you see more music coming through Full Pint? What's your thoughts on that whole atmosphere?
It's been a while since I've been there myself, but I have seen a little bit more on Facebook around it.
Yeah.
So it does look like it is becoming a presence, at least in the Lawrenceville area.
I wouldn't be surprised if that's Tony's doing, because bassist from Solar Burn, he works there.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, nice. I know Henry Bukorski was doing some of those open mics, and
Yes.
those were a lot of fun. So.
Yeah, it's great to see a lot of these smaller venues. I feel like with all of the backlash and the nastiness that people keep coming out with about the local scene, about nobody supports local music, I often see the opposite in a lot of ways, where you see a lot of these smaller places which are up and coming and new, and they realize that people want to see music and they want to see live music. We know we have a bar here in Millville, Howard's, that's pretty new, and you see music there all the time, and this place is not much bigger than these two rooms combined, but they always have local music. They have an open mic now every week, and it seems like a lot of the places which you wouldn't think of as regular venues of music are really trying to bring music in and be supportive of local communities. And I really think that shows a shift in maybe the mentality in this city.
Oh, I agree. I mean, the first place I ever played open mic years ago was at Club Cafe, and the Acoustic Cafe group, like Jesse Prentice and Zub and all those guys were awesome and welcoming. And then more recently, when I started playing my own stuff, Jeremy Kaywood at Hambones was just like, get on the stage. It's good,
Oh
man.
yeah,
You're gonna do great. And, like,
he's a great advocate and a great way a great person to connect you to other people. I know whenever we first started the network, he introduced me to a lot of people, which was really helpful with helping the network grow and just getting involved in the music scene in a bigger way.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Can't say enough nice things about Jeremy. That guy's great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's always, even when I didn't really want to play live, he was like, "Dude, you're up." And I was like, "All right, cool." So yeah, he's been really helpful in getting us to share our music with people and not just play it in my living room.
Yeah, and that's great. I know that, it's really cool too to be able to experience that, somebody just getting involved in the music scene. I know I had hosted an event at Hambones once, and this guy came down, and we had convinced him to go on stage, and he was fantastic. And now you see him playing all over the place, and it's really cool to see that and experience somebody take their first step in getting involved. And it's amazing how some people could surprise you because, like you said, you're playing at home, you're not out, and people don't realize.
I should clarify, I was playing in Pittsburgh bands for about 10 years, but always
Yeah,
as...
but not as a solo.
No, always
performer.
as a guitar player.
Yeah.
Yeah, which was cool. But, the first couple times I got up on stage and I was like, wait, I need to sing. Like,
Yeah.
no one else is going to do it. That was a little shocking, and I think it still is when we play shows, but that's getting over that.
Well, I think you always have some sort of, I don't know if anxiety is the right word, but you always have some sort of edge to you when you do a live performance. Otherwise, you don't care, right? I know
Right.
even at times I go and host events, and you because you care about your brand and you want it to come across a certain way, there is a little bit of an edge to your performance. And I think if you kind of lose that means you probably aren't taking it as seriously as you need to.
Well, yeah, if you were going on stage and feeling nothing and just
Yeah,
going through the motions,
clocking in and out.
right, then the audience is going to see that, obviously, so.
Yeah, for sure. So you guys have another song for us.
We do.
Right.
Yeah, this one's called Valley. It's, you want the headphones in?
No.
Ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
Down in the valley we wake up
Ryan Hoffman and the Pioneers here on the River's Edge Radio Network, Pittsburgh's voice for local music, where you can listen to local music 24 hours a day at riversedgepgh.com. They've got one more song they're going to bring to us at the end of today's program, and we do have the weird news coming up here in just a minute or so, but I want to talk a little bit about the dumbest protest I've seen in Pittsburgh for a while. There was a giant sign that was hung on a bridge here in Pittsburgh, and it said, "Pedutos, stand with Paris, stand with Pittsburgh." And the reason why it's so dumb is the protest is to get the mayor of Pittsburgh to take a stand against the Beaver County cracker plant. Well, Pittsburgh is not in Beaver County. Pittsburgh is in Allegheny County. And I felt that if they wanted to make a really successful protest, it would have been more fruitful to, I don't know, travel to Beaver County and maybe protest the Beaver County commissioners, maybe protest even your state legislatures, anyone but the mayor of Pittsburgh, because the mayor of Pittsburgh has literally zero power over anything that happens in Beaver County. So they had this big protest. And what's great is it wasn't just students. So it was students and alumni of the University of Pittsburgh. So the alumni thing kind of scares me because I'm guessing they've never taken a single class in civics or political science or anything of the sort. And I guess Bill Peduto has opened himself up to this kind of protest because he feels the need to comment on everything and anything, even when it doesn't really affect the Pittsburgh community in any real way. And one of the big reasons why they mentioned it was they said that he came out with a statement against the president when the president said that he represents the people in Pittsburgh, not Paris, and he had to come up and grandstand. And that's Peduto's thing. Anytime he can get in front of a camera and get on television, he's racing to the TV. Or he's racing to the camera. That's Bill Peduto's thing. So I see where this is developed to get to a situation where they feel that the mayor needs to comment on everything, but I just feel like the protest could have been done in a better way. Usually right now we'd play the weird news music.
Oh, I can play the weird news music.
What's that?
I can play it.
Oh, you can play the weird news music. All right. Yeah, so again, I understand their grievance. I can understand why they would want to protest this, the fracking situation in Beaver County. I just think maybe you should protest to the right people and not the mayor of a city that's not even in the county. We've got the weird news music, and then we've got the weird news segment, and then after that, we will have Charlie, formerly of the Pittsburgh City Paper, Charlie Deitch, and he's going to tell us a little bit about what transpired that led to his firing and what's on the horizon for him, because I believe he has some interesting new information for us that we'll hear on today's program, which is River Talk on the River's Edge Radio Network.
Blue on your paper wings. dress up a dog to look like a walrus, but it's still a dog. No, it's true. You know, they shot him 5 more times to make sure he was dead. Then they went and shot him some more. Later they said he was wearing a ring, and they thought it might start shooting power beams, render them incapacitated while he took over the world. Yeah, real weird Green Lanternish. But who's to say that's not what might have happened? I don't know.
All right, this is the Weird News segment where I, Brian Crawford, will save the city of Pittsburgh with not 1, not 2, but 3 weird stories where I keep the Mon Monster at bay and single-handedly save the city from total destruction. The first two stories actually have to do with air travel. The first one had to deal with a woman who had a really interesting situation where she was on a Southwest plane and she received some inappropriate entertainment. Maybe it'd be entertaining for some people. It wasn't entertaining for her. She was sitting next to a gentleman who was watching adult entertainment and really, really enjoying it. So she felt a little too uncomfortable to get up and find an attendant. So what she did is she actually took to Twitter. She paid for the online service in the plane, and she was tweeting Southwest, asking them to do something about the situation. She was in the middle seat, and Southwest really didn't do anything about it. They referred her to contact somebody who's working on the plane, one of the flight attendants, and they didn't really do much beyond that. She said, "There's literally no way to do that without putting myself at risk. He's in the window seat, I'm in the middle, and there's someone dead asleep on my left. I can't move. That's why I purchased Wi-Fi to tweet you." So Southwest said, "If you feel more comfortable, you could speak to one of the crew once you land. We want to be able to help you the best way, and the best way to do that is to contact the crew directly on board." So that was Southwest's response to this woman. She's literally sitting there in the middle of 2 people, and the guy on the one side is literally getting off to porn that he's watching in flight. So she eventually goes on and says that the guy does not have a micro penis, but a pretty small one. She said it was out and easy and available for everyone to see. And she continued to tweet Southwest, who eventually sent her a response that said, "Thank you for sending your confirmation number so we can document your concerns and ensure that the appropriate leadership teams are made aware of your experience. Our goal is to provide a safe, comfortable, and enjoyable atmosphere on board our aircraft, and I'm so sorry that you had such an unpleasant flight, especially since we feel we should have done more to address this situation. We agree that the flying is much more enjoyable when the cabin is peaceful, and I regret that your experience was less than pleasant as a result of another customer's behavior." So she basically has continued to go after Southwest on Twitter. It's been really going viral. It's been picked up in the media. She said here that, "For everyone following the tweets about my sexual assault aboard Southwest Air today, this is Southwest's response." And she posts the response there on Twitter that she got in an email. So that's a weird story number 1. It's I could not imagine dealing with that. The other one had to deal with somebody who caused a plane to land, an emergency landing. This here comes from Mirror. It says, "A plane was forced to make an emergency landing after a passenger's unbearable body odor caused other holidaymakers around him to vomit and faint." And this is something that you unfortunately experience all the time when you work in a place like I work overnight. Well, when I worked overnight, people just came into work like it didn't matter. Wouldn't bathe, didn't wear deodorant, just came into work however they wanted. And the worst is whenever somebody feels that they can avoid showering and avoid people picking up on their horrible body odor by buying cheap perfume or cheap cologne, cheap deodorizers, and they will spray that all over their body in an attempt to cover it up. And not only do you not cover up the BO by doing that, but now you've created a new form of odor, a mixture of the BO and the cheap perfume, and that's just a disaster. So I can imagine, I could definitely understand why this plane was forced to crash. The next one had to deal with a woman who used a delivery service to help her out in her personal life. You remember the old Jimmy John's commercials where they would say that Jimmy John's is so fast that people would call Jimmy John's to put out the fire or get a cat out of a tree because Jimmy John's was just so fast that they beat the emergency personnel? Well, apparently Kentucky Fried Chicken can offer similar service. A woman had a giant spider, this is according to Mirror as well, a giant spider in her apartment, and she was so terrified she could do nothing about it. She asked her roommates, texted her roommates, they were not available. So what she did is she called a food delivery service similar to Uber Eats, and she thought that KFC was the right meal to get, so she had them deliver KFC to her house, first asking if the delivery person was able to enter the house without her answering the door, and they said yes. So they entered the house, came in, took care of the spider for her, and then went along their way. So there you go. KFC to take care of all of your insectoid needs. That is the weird news for today. We've got Charlie here on my right, Charlie formerly of the Pittsburgh City Paper, and you're here with us on River Talk on the River's Edge Radio Network. Charlie Deitch, thank you so much for joining us. How are you today?
I'm well. Thanks for having me in.
Thank you. So this situation I found really interesting where you were fired for your editorials.
Yeah, I was, well...
for the language in it.
Well, yeah,
No,
so the subject, I guess, really. But I think it sort of goes back. We had new ownership at City Paper in spring of 2016. And, it's a conservative, the new owners are more of a conservative family. They own a more conservative paper up north, the Butler Eagle. And, we'd been going at it for a while just about some content things. And, it's very rare in media, especially in newspapers, for a new company to take over and then usually the editor is replaced right out. So I think to make it just about 2 years, I feel a little fortunate for that. But we definitely had our conversations and our struggles over content. But the kind of, I think it was the straw that broke the camel's back, is I did an editorial. We'd actually done quite a bit of coverage of State Rep Daryl Metcalf, who hails from Butler County, but I'm sure there's not a single person who doesn't know Representative Metcalf because of his powerful position on the state government committee. And so he basically, for those who might not know exactly what he's clearly a homophobic. He's clearly
and there are statements he's made that could verify that. So it's not.
If you asked him, he would certainly tell you that I don't think he'd use the word homophobic, but he would certainly make it very clear that he doesn't like
accused another person of being a homosexual.
Correct,
because they bumped into him
because they touched his arm. Yeah. So he's just and again, the major problem is that's a major problem, but the other problem is he has admitted that he will block. That no legislation that comes from a Democrat has a chance of even getting to the House floor. And that's something that everyone's kind of known because he just didn't do it. Well, he bragged about that and admitted that in a Facebook post, a social media post. And so that's what the target of this editorial was, asking that he be removed from that state government position. And actually the same day we ran that, coincidentally, several papers around the state, including the Patriot News out of Harrisburg and the Inquirer out of Philadelphia, they all ran similar editorials of a similar tone. And so it was a Tuesday. Our deadline is usually Monday in the evening. Tuesday, I had a confrontation with our assistant general manager, and I was told that I needed to find something other than Daryl Metcalf to write about. I needed to maybe focus on Allegheny County races, because this is right before the primary. And I pointed out that if he had read the paper, he would have seen that we covered plenty of Allegheny County races in that issue. So I was basically told not to write about Representative Metcalf, and I refused. And I'm calm now, but I can tell you that neither I nor the general manager were calm that day. And I was told that I'd have to speak to ownership in Butler after deadline, and I said that was fine, but this is something I wouldn't do. The suggestion was made that I could quit, and I said I'm not going to quit, because by quitting, it was going to happen anyway. So at least if I was still there, I had a chance to still control
Yeah.
went out, because my job was to make all editorial decisions of the City Paper since I became editor in 2016. So, I'm sorry, 2014. And so a week went by and nothing happened. I didn't hear from anybody. And then a week after that happened, I went into work about 10:15 on a Tuesday morning and was terminated. Not given a reason. I was just told we weren't going to get into that. But, you know, this kind of weird thing happens a week before. And again, it's always kind of felt like, and I've said this before, I felt like they were trying to take the paper in a maybe in a less controversial direction. And again, it's their paper, but you know the City Paper has a reputation for the past 26 years.
That's what I was going to say. Did they know what they were buying when they purchased the City Paper?
It's the company that printed the City Paper for years and years and years. So they certainly knew the product when they bought it. And the only direction I was ever given on the first day was do what you do, and this is what I do. It's what I've done for a majority of my career. So. You know, I guess it was just they felt it was time to go in a different direction, and you know, it was you know, it sure. I mean, it bothered me obviously because of the people I worked with and the product that I'd sort of taken over as my own, taken ownership of. You know, as we all have over the past. I've been there. I was there 13 years up on my termination. So you know, it really felt personal. But you know, it's kind of the thing. You know, when there's always something else out there, and that's sort of where I'm looking now. I'm trying to move away from what happened to City Paper and turn it into a positive.
Yeah, and I've heard a little bit of rumors about that positive. Can you go into that on this program?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, I'm in the process right now. I'm working with some folks. Been having meetings. We are fully committed to launching a 100% independent news source media company in Pittsburgh. It will be with the alt weekly, the kind of the traditional alt weekly style, which is, you know, heavy focus on arts, heavy focus on entertainment, but also a really heavy focus on news. We've always prided ourselves on telling the stories that other people don't tell. I mean, it's you know, it's never been. I mean, I probably once a week I get a call from somebody who says, "Hey, I think I have a story for you." Now, I already called the Post-Gazette, or I already called Channel 11, and they're not interested in it. And I got to tell you, we've gotten some really great stories that way because we take the time and we listen and we kind of look at what's behind.
Talking about with the City Paper.
Yeah, when I was with the City Paper, that's correct. Yeah. So, I mean, it's been a point of pride for us for the City Paper for years, and I'm sure it still is. There are great people at the City Paper. I left many great colleagues and friends behind. And they're still doing the job that I hired them to do. And so I'm hoping, you know, I wish them the best of luck, but I have to question the future of, well, let me say this, is every city needs an alt weekly, as in, not just an alt weekly in name, but as an independent news source. And this new endeavor, it won't be controlled at all by outside influences. I mean, it's going to be, I mean, if you, I mean, we're still working out the structure and so forth, but we plan to have a broad base of community voices in our paper. We plan to have community involvement in our paper, and some things I can't really talk about right now, but yeah, we plan to have, the community is going to be involved in this paper, and the community is going to be driving the sort of the content and the direction of the paper, and we've got some other things too that we're looking at.
So it's going to be a physical paper that someone can pick up.
I tell you this, I will 85 to 90% commit to that today. I mean, I don't think right away, but yeah, that is what we're doing. And the other question I've been asked is, are there room for 2 alt weeklies in Pittsburgh? And my answer is no. So, you know, but it's something. It's not anything that I or anyone else that I'm working with have set out to do. But you know, when you think something is wrong, you have to step up and try and correct it. And by no means am I trying to put anybody out of business or do anything like that. But you know, it's something that I truly believe in, and it's something that I think the city is lacking right now. When you look at the editorial pages of the Post-Gazette, when you look at the fact that Rob Rogers, one of the greatest political satirists in this country, has his cartoons.
I just saw that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just
they're not being published.
Correct.
The newest ones. Yeah.
I believe 4 in a row that he drew were passed over by the extremely conservative editorial board of the Post-Gazette. So I'm not singling out City Paper here. I'm not picking on City Paper by any means, but
well, I feel like this is a problem that goes beyond City Paper, because I've heard also rumors rumors that there was a sports network in Pittsburgh where the hosts were told not to talk about a certain executive that had an alcohol problem.
I've heard that rumor as well.
Yeah, so you do see this across all different types of mediums.
You do. And I will say this, early in my career, I worked for a newspaper owned by the Nutting family, who also owned the Pittsburgh Pirates.
Mm-hmm.
And this situation in City Paper is the first time I've ever been told, don't write about, especially someone in such a high profile. I mean, I worked for the Nuttings, and you would think it would be in their best interest not to have any negative, articles or stories about the Pirates, but we were never told anything like that. I mean, they never interfered to that level, because I've had a few people say that my freedom of speech, my sort of my First Amendment right was squelched, and I mean, I agree, I believe that, but or I think so, but I also know that it's a private company.
Yes.
And they tell you what to do, and you do it or you don't, and you suffer the consequences. But my main issue with that situation, with the Daryl Metcalf situation, was when you are a media company and you're basically forming a bond of trust with the community, with your readers. You're saying, and to your advertisers, you're saying you're investing in this product either with your time reading or your money advertising, and this company is uninfluenced by the outside. At least that's what most people think of when they think of newspapers. And so, you can't, in my mind, you just can't betray that. It's something that it's the most important thing that I do. And I mean, I've always worked for for-profit newspapers, for-profit companies, but I've always, as well as many of my colleagues, we've always operated. There's a code of ethics that comes with, an unspoken code of ethics that comes with being a journalist, and you just, the main thing is there is a wall between revenue and news reporting, and the two just don't mix. You don't cross. One is not influenced by the other, and so. I felt that was because that's what I felt was being done in this situation, and I couldn't do it. There was no possible way I could do it.
Well, the thing is by going public with this, hopefully maybe you can start to change the standard. I know in our particular network we have a host who could get a job on a terrestrial radio station. He's here because he can talk about what he wants to talk about, and he has that freedom. And everywhere else he's worked, they've come in and told him, you're allowed to say this, you can't say this, you can't talk about this person. And at that point, how can you trust that organization as a consumer? And then also as somebody who's looking for a job, you know that you're not being able to put out the product that you want to put out to your audience.
And that's what you're seeing at places like the Post-Gazette. You're seeing what's being done by the editorial board is rubbing off on a really great group of reporters, a really hardworking, honest group of reporters who are turning out great stories every day. And it's just, it tarnishes it when the public feels, okay, just something isn't right here, something's not kosher.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I think there's been a lot of support since this happened a couple of weeks ago, and I don't think it's. I mean, certainly, obviously, my mother and my aunts and uncles, everyone was on social media complaining about it. But it was more than that. It was people that I've never met before.
Yeah.
It was people from across the country. And again, it wasn't support for me per se, but it was a support for, for the stand that I took. And saying, like, look, we won't stand for this when it comes to, the presentation of news. And it's just one of those things that you can't compromise on.
And there's no way to say it wasn't politically driven either, because when you look at Daryl Metcalf, before we came on, we were talking about the protest on the bridge, and you had brought up the point that Bill Peduto had turned himself into a regional politician, and you could say the same thing about Daryl Metcalf in the language he uses. Not that Peduto doesn't use crazy language like him, but in Daryl Metcalf's case, he makes himself a focal point in the political spectrum here in southwestern Pennsylvania because of the language he uses and because of the chairmanship that he has in the State House of Representatives. So he is a regional figure.
And that's exactly what I pointed out. But it was, I mean, I knew that day. It was an argument I wasn't going to win that day, and it was an argument I knew that was going to cost me my job. I didn't know when, and it turned out it's probably sooner. It was probably coming. Like I said, it's the fact that I lasted nearly 2 years, or I did last 2 years, a little over 2 years there, under new management for an editor of any kind of publication. I think that's, That's kind of a miracle because, again, I assumed on the second day I was going to be let go there in 2016. But, I lasted this long, and I just did the best job I could for as long as I could. And when I realized I could no longer, you always kind of know that moment, even when you're having discussions about any number of, even little things, that at some point a big decision is going to be put before you, and you're going to have to decide then and there, so what's the deal? And I had thought about walking out, but that's like I said earlier. I thought that walking out. Was just kind of the easy way out. I wasn't going to do it, and if they wanted to do it, they were going to have to remove me to do it, and so
I don't think you would have made the impact that you're making now if you would have walked out, because people are talking about it now. It's a bigger story.
I don't know about that necessarily. I mean, it probably, but my. Once it happened, again, as a journalist, my thought was, and I will say this, and this is something I haven't told anyone, I came really close to publishing that the day after it happened, publishing it on our own website, which I knew would be my last day on the job. Mm-hmm. And I consulted with some friends, some longtime friends in the business, and they said, well, look, you need to see if you can direct change rather than just sort of giving up here at this moment. And so, so I decided not to, and I'm glad I did because it allowed me. Number one, it was our summer guide, our biggest issue of the year, and I would have left a lot of people in the lurch. And there are a lot of great people there who work hard to get that paper out every week. And so I have a lot of friends there. My friends are there, so I didn't want to do anything to harm them, but at the same time, I just thought I'd let it take the natural course of things rather than sort of because I felt like doing it that way, in hindsight anyway, I felt like doing it that way would have been a bit too narcissistic and a bit too about me than about, and it's honestly, this is probably, I think, maybe the third or fourth interview I've done, and it's becoming like a little, it's starting to feel really weird, like being on the other end of it.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I write stories, I don't want to necessarily be a part of it, and so that's why I'm really looking forward to just kind of putting my head down and hopefully in the next couple of months we're gonna have a product. Hopefully sooner rather than later, we're going to at least start. You're going to start seeing a footprint that we're going to start laying, and we're planning on coming in to make a difference, and it's going to be a legitimate media company, and we're going to be out there competing with everyone. I mean, not just City Paper, not just the Pittsburgh City Paper. We're going to be out there doing the kind of news that I know how to do, doing the kind of blanketed arts and entertainment coverage that I know how to do, and we're just going to do it in a way that people can be guaranteed. And again, the things I can't go into now, but be guaranteed that we will not be influenced by any outside forces.
And Charlie, people often talk about the good old days where you had 3 news sources on TV, you had a few papers, and that was it. A couple radio stations, and that's where you got your news, and it was great because a few people controlled it. I feel like this is an example of why that's not a great thing. It's great to have these alternative media sources, and I think it's important. I think it's vital to keep the big dogs at, keep them in line, keep them in check.
I totally agree, and I think that who knows how many times in the past 20 or 30 years or whatever that something like, I'm sure it's happened quite a bit, and there was never really any sort of there was never any way to challenge that authority. There was never any way, because a guy would have been fired, would have lost his job, and that would have been the end of it. They say, "Oh, what happened to what's his name?" I have no idea. I don't remember that guy. So it's a way. There's so much more. There's so much more of an eye on what we do now, and it's what's kind of nice is we used to be the ones that held everyone else accountable, government officials and so forth. So to be held accountable, which is something that we've always tried to do. I've covered PG publisher John Robinson Block a lot in the past year and a half, 2 years. And, that's what we do. We cover media. We keep everyone else accountable. And sort of as I'm sort of taking hearing things and starting to see City Paper maybe again, for right or for wrong, when I see them sort of maybe going in a little bit different direction, I start to think, oh, if there was someone who covered us, there might be a story here. And again, I don't know that it's so much of a story. It's just that things were changing, and at some point you have to decide if you're going to be part of it or not. And this particular case was something that I just didn't think that I could do. It wasn't really a choice for me.
Yeah, Charlie Deitch, I hope you'll come back and let
Absolutely.
us know whenever this new
We will.
product comes out, and we can talk about that a little bit more.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you so
Thanks
much.
for having me.
All right, Charlie Deitch, he was with the Pittsburgh City Paper. I'm Brian Crawford. We're going to hold off on our news on the wages for fast food employees. All I'll tell you is Chick-fil-A is raising the wage to $18 an hour, which is just $1 less than I make at my union job. So big changes there. Will that affect the industry as a whole? We'll talk about that on Friday. We'll be back with the Saturday show, but we're moving it to Friday with the job schedule. Jay Cooper, Howie D. Mack, and myself will be live Friday at 6 p.m. But before we wrap up here, we have one more song from Ryan Hoffman and the Pioneers, and we're going to head out with that. This is River Talk. This is the River's Edge Radio Network. I'm Brian Crawford. You can listen to local music 24 hours a day at riversedgepgh.com. And don't forget, this show is sponsored by Hahn Funeral Home, the only family-owned funeral home in Millvale, and also known for the green burial. That's the River's Edge, riversedgepgh.com. I'm Brian Crawford. We'll catch you all on Friday.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having us, Brian. Nice. Thanks for talking, Charlie.
Thank you.
We're going to play one more song called The Fulcrum Chalet. And with all due respect, I just want to express my opinion of with the bridge protesters
All right.
and the shell cracker plant. I would just like to say that I do think we need voices like that in Pittsburgh because we do.
Well, I
care
think we need
about
voices like
water.
that in Pittsburgh. I just think that they should actually talk to the people who can make the decisions and make the changes, not somebody who has literally zero power to change the
But
laws
if you're in
in these
Beaver
zoning.
County and you see that there's a group of people protesting in Pittsburgh, you don't feel so alone anymore, and you feel
Sure.
like there's a group of people.
But the
who-
people in Pittsburgh can protest for the actual to the actual people that can
they
make
could,
the
but
change.
Pittsburgh gets a lot more national attention than Beaver County, so we have a voice that we should use for, keeping.
All right, we'll be getting back on another time. But
Great.
my point is protest are the people that can make the change, not the people who can just talk about it. But
I agree.
All right.
We can respectfully disagree. And
Ryan
still be on
Hoffman and the
same
Pioneers
show.
wrapping up the show. This is River Talk. I'm Brian Crawford, and you can turn me back on. And this is the River Talk on the River's Edge Radio Network at riversedgepgh.com.
Sitting on a park bench next to blue dust in the wind. All of a sudden all your senses never gonna give a little piece of heaven. And I never saw a reason to complain. There's a nurse outside the doorway drawing chalk outlines. I didn't catch her name. Now I'm staring at the clock. You're dreaming numbers while you sleep. The pendulum you trusted has gone and skipped a beat. The measurements of time beating on this drum for far too long. Now we just need an excuse to pull the feathers from the wings and sing along. Now I stumble down the staircase, left the
Roses on the plate.
postcards in the lawn, but no,
They never talk, they never say your name is not a sentence I'd ever want to observe.
But there's a coroner with great ideas, he's coming around the curve.
He's got everything you need to start a new life if you ever get the urge.